Hello and welcome to another FMX Spotlight. My name is Volker Helzle. I run the R&D department at Film Academy's Animationsinstitut, and I will be your host for tonight's show. The FMX Spotlight program is intended to bridge the gap until FMX 2021 Reimagine Tomorrow, which will take place May 4th to May 6th as an online event. Today, we will get latest insights into the recently announced MetaHuman Creator toolset. At the end of the show, you can enter our live Q&A session. Get the link from the FMX website or the YouTube video description below. Our guest today is Vladimir Mastilovic, Vice President of Digital Humans Technology at Epic. Hi, Vladimir. Great to have you. How are you doing?
Hi, Volker. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. Doing great. Finishing touches on MetaHuman Creator. And excited to talk about it to you today.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sure it's a very busy time for you and your team, so we appreciate that you can be part of this FMX Spotlight. Vladimir, before we go into digital humans, could you give us a short overview of how you got into touch with digital faces? And I know you're from Serbia. I have a lot of friends from that area. But I wonder what computer graphics was when you started in early 2000, I think, right?
Yeah. I think it stems even from the end of like 90s when I was in my high school. People often ask me that. I guess I draw some of it from the fascination with the VFX, especially a film by James Cameron called Abyss. I think that's actually the first movie where CG effects were used. And I was just fascinated by the face in the water that aliens in that movie could control. And then later on, I think The Matrix got me even more interested. And I suppose, there is something about digital humans and characters in general when it comes to CG that is just magic to me. It's sort of infinitely complex topic of first visuals and then motion, and then as we approach some futuristic stuff like AI, it's going to be about behavior and even more exciting things about that. So I guess it's just this sort of self-reflective topic of who we are, how we create that sort of illusion of the character being alive on the screen and things like that. It's pretty fascinating topic to me.
And do you have a computer science background or an art background? Because usually with these people so deeply into digital faces, they kind of need both muscles, right? Because technically it's usually very complex, but also there's a quite big artistic side to creating these things.
Yeah, well, my background, I was, kind of a split personality in my student years because we did not have multidisciplinary studies here in Serbia at the time. Now we do have pretty amazing courses. And I was more in the computer science side, but, spending too much of my time doing artistic things like, drawing, studying perspective and shadow and things like that. So in the meantime, I started a third thing, which was my company, and I eventually had to drop off the university to focus on my work. At the time, I was really sorry to do that, but now looking back, it's a nice story, of search for knowledge through a means which is a little bit more non-formal. It was difficult and still is to some extent, but yeah, it's my story. I guess I should own it.
Yeah, I think it's a success story. Yeah, interesting. So let's talk about the MetaHuman Creator toolset. I understand it's a cloud application. What are the reasons for this running in the cloud?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of debate within Epic Games about that because it's in a way the first thing that we're doing in this way. The main reason was the database that fuels the tool set is too large to be delivered to on the client side, and it's continuously growing. So it's where we've taken a data-driven approach where we are scanning a lot of people, their appearance, geometry, motion. And this is a sort of huge data set that can be delivered efficiently only through the cloud interface. I like to think of it on a much smaller scale, of course, but something like Google Maps, but for digital humans.
Interesting. When you say that you do all this scanning and motion recording, are you using off-the-shelf tools for that, or is that something proprietary?
Well, we started using off-the-shelf tools, but we quickly found limitations. Professional tool sets were there, but they were way outside of our price range, and maybe still even are, because even within Epic, this research requires so many cameras around the subject that you can't really buy the most expensive movie cameras, and even if you could, their size is still not practical with this kind of setups. So we are using off-the-shelf, typically machine vision cameras, but there's a lot of electronics on the back end that we need to custom design in order to fire them reliably with lights and other devices that we have as part of our shooting scenarios, like robotic chairs and pan tilt heads in the future and things like that.
Yeah, it's a lot to come from what I hear.
Yeah.
So it looks like creating humans with the MetaHumans creator is very intuitive, and yeah, I was wondering if there isn't a danger that some of the characters might have a typical look and feel to it associated to that's a MetaHuman. Um, uh, is that possible?
That's a typical problem with character generation tooling, that all of them have a specific look that you can recognize. We're trying to address that in terms of sort of the quality should be there, so that we could break away. I guess it's a sort of uncanny valley of sorts. I think that there is going to be a specific look that you will recognize in the MetaHumans, but at the same time, MetaHuman Creator is something that will evolve over time. And we will get closer and closer to being completely photoreal, and to be able to generate any kind of appearance. I think there's a little bit of that now, but having said that, I think we've accomplished a really wide range of possible appearances that you can do with the tool, so that I don't think that, especially our application is a little bit different. So this is not I guess a sort of a tool that will be within confined environment. It's a tool that feeds character assets to a pretty wide range of Unreal Engine ecosystem, tools and services, so that people will be doing very different things with these MetaHumans. Even before we've announced and with the samples, we've seen really interesting things that people are doing. Some of them are more on virtual production side, some of them are more on cinematic, and I'm sure that we'll see gaming applications soon as well.
Cool. Can we have a look at it?
Of course, yes. We've prepared a video where we are going through the whole workflow and various options. So let's take a look and see what each option does.
Cool.
So here we see our tool in action. We really wanted to make it a non-linear experience to create the character, and all of the previews should be there for you whenever you wish to see them. So as you create the character, the rig is available there almost immediately. It takes only about a second to compute a full rig with about 700 joints and 700 blend shapes and 8 levels of detail. So you can sort of choose your path, how you go and build your characters. So we see here that we're sort of seeing what kind of hairstyles we have and facial hair. So we can explore here and basically, by just clicking a thumbnail, a whole high-quality groom will be loaded and attached and simulated on top of the face that we're seeing. And the same, of course, goes for the facial hair. So you see that even without changing the anatomy and the skin tone, the variety of characters that you can accomplish is pretty wide. So here we are experimenting a little bit more about what we can do. And I think we're going now to go and sort of experiment with the skin tone a little bit. So you see here that the skin you can pick a shade of the low frequencies that you see in the skin. And you can choose high frequency detail separately from the low frequencies. So high frequency detail is not only going to be in the texture, but it's also going to affect the geometry as well as the dynamic maps.
And the
So
dynamic
here,
maps are these are the ones that are also affected depending on what the facial muscles do, right?
yes, yes. So they are containing compression and stretching maps that will
Mhm.
activate depending on the muscle contractions in the facial rig. So here we are showing, creating a younger version of the character that we have started with. As you see, we don't have any age or gender labels. We felt it was important to not label things, and so that people can build based on color and shape, because these representations are highly subjective, and we wanted to keep the tool down to objective parameters of what the face is.
Mhm. So when you're moving that circle, that's an interpolation between the characters that you first put into the from the drawer up into the scheme of the three circles.
Exactly. So we wanted to make the path as low effort as possible. So you're starting the character creation by picking a preset that is the closest point to the character that you had in mind. And then the blend spaces are there so that you can choose multiple characters and blend per region between them. So what that allows you is to get in the ballpark of the character that you wish to create really quickly without any chance of being wrong about. So none of these combinations will get you into a place where the rig is going to break. You may, however, create an unusual face, but that's, I guess, an artistic choice on the user side. Here we can pick a different body for our character. So any body goes with any face. And here, as we've shown that we can de-age a character, now we're going towards a more feminine look to show that it's all one continuous blend space of different possible character appearances, rather than a discrete selection between any given choice. Here we're addressing smaller things like freckles and, of course, makeup. We did not create many of these sort of easy tools like tattoos and scars and eyewear or jewelry, because we feel that these are the things of vast variety of possible appearances. And at the same time, tooling for creating these exists in many other places. What we've really focused on here is the underlying rigging technology and the animation tool set. So here we're seeing something really interesting. So that's the finest granularity level control that we're giving to the user. We're calling this one a direct manipulation tool. So you can think about it as a face IK. So the points are the end effectors, and the geometry will do its best to optimize its values so that it touches the end point, which is that dot. But all of the computations underneath these dots are constrained by real data. So whichever combination we create, it should be a plausible appearance of a human face.
Cool. Yeah, Vladimir, you mentioned 700 joints, and I have to say what I find really fascinating is the quality of the eyes. How much of these 700 are spent for the eyes?
Thank you. Not so many, but the geometry density is the most dense around the eyes. There's a lot of smart things happening in the shader, though, that will add to the believability of the eye. So we have refraction, and the iris color is also procedurally generated in our offline process. So we've taken a great deal of care to optimize underlying appearance so that it preserves identities and anatomy, which will lead to a sort of a more natural eye gaze. So a lot of maybe not joints per se, but a lot of effort and conversations went into the design of the eye systems.
Okay.
Having said that, like we always want eyes to be better. So, we are fairly happy with these, but we are already discussing kind of more advanced simulation options and caustics and displacement and, various other things. So like I said earlier, it's an infinitely complicated problem to solve.
But I think it's really remarkable. I mean, just looking at how quickly, of course, you need to know the tool, but how quickly you're able to, to sculpt that character. And it seems that there's hardly, I couldn't think of any area that you have not touched where you could control the appearance, and it seems extremely intuitive. I have to say, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it gets a little time to get to know the model and to understand what you can and cannot expect from it. But yes, I'm pretty happy with the ease of use of these direct manipulation points and the blend spaces. And also keep in mind that you're here creating an asset that you are downloading as geometry and layered textures and rig that can work both in Maya and in Unreal Engine. So you can see this asset as either a placeholder or a final character in your game, but also it could be a starting point for further artistic sculpts and intervention on top of these.
Mm-hmm. A haircut changes the appearance of a person. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it's a very important part of our identity, yes, a lot of effort has been invested into the hair grooms. And I just remembered something that I commented from early on. You remember how I said it will create a plausible face? So that's really important, because we made a conscious decision that this tool is not a tool for creating somebody's likeness. It's a tool for creating something that looks like a plausible, possible appearance of a human. But at this point in time, this is not a tool where you can submit a photo of yourself and get an exact likeness, or a photo of a celebrity and get a digital double of them. So in this way, we're sort of making small steps towards a sort of larger vision. But as tools come online, we also have to be smart on the ethical and legal side. Because once you make a tool that can create somebody's likeness, you're sort of opening a certain set of problems as well. So for now, this is a sort of more in the plausible domain rather than the likeness domain.
Interesting. Well, thanks a lot for sharing this insight into the tool itself. It's really interesting, and I can't wait to get my hands on.
Of course, happy to do it. Thank you.
So that means with the MetaHuman Creator, we no longer need to teach our students facial rigging and fax basics?
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's one of our biggest concerns, that the tool will be perceived like that. The answer is absolutely not. The tool is meant to give you a good starting point. So you can think about this tool as something practical, right? You're starting a project, you need human characters running around in it. And typically today, that is a very expensive production that you would need to run. And even if you had the people and the money, it would still take months, sometimes even years to get to a good starting position. So MetaHuman Creator really gets you there up and running in no time. There is a lot of specific appearances that people will want that will require work on top of the MetaHuman Creator. So MetaHuman Creator will deliver you an asset, but that asset can be then further worked on and improved or characterized with the tools, scars, more specific look, and things like that. So I think what we are trying to do is make people more productive, and also focus them more on the artistic work rather than cleaning up vertices and textures from various artifacts that usually come with scanning.
That comes as a relief. So we do need education. Fantastic. Maybe a good point in time to speak about our educational opportunities at Film Academy. So the technical director postgraduate course might be just right for some of you in the audience if you want to work on the convergence of technical challenging but also artistic demanding tools and content. You can apply until May 15th. for courses starting in fall. International students are welcome. No German language skills are required. More information at technicaldirector.de. Back to meta-humans and digital humans in general are very time and labor consuming. So the MetaHuman Creator is about to change that fundamentally, as we can see. Now, can you share with us your vision of creative tools for maybe the next 5 years?
Of course. When we look at our potential users of our technology, we see a huge range, ranging from AAA professionals working in very large budgets, requiring maximum control. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we see even kids wanting to tell some kind of a story through the means of interactive media. So our tooling strategy and our product strategy, at least on the MetaHuman side, is going to be sort of a low friction entry point, as you've seen sort of a glimpse of that with the MetaHuman Creator, an intuitive tool set that doesn't require any sort of learning curve. You can just immediately go and use it. It feels almost like a game. And then if you should require the access to the underlying complexity, that should be there right there for you, available in the engine. So you can see that a little bit with the MetaHuman sample characters. It's quite easy to, of course, you will make them in the MetaHuman Creator, but then when you download them, you can immediately use them. But if you open the blueprints, there is a quite complex graph of joints, blend shapes, interconnections that you would need to understand if you would like to adjust it to your needs. So yes, back to the previous topic, absolutely, we have no intention to replace the need for education. I think it's going to be needed more than ever, because this tooling will now open access to many more domains than it was previously possible. So I think things like psychology and cinematography and all different areas will be even more needed than before, I would say.
Yeah, one can read a lot about various applications of digital humans. It's an exciting time, and it's wonderful that you provide this tool. So you talked about different layers of access, and are you planning also to provide an API?
So, of course, through the engine, that's a form of an API. But separate from that, a MetaHuman specific API is currently not planned. But, I can't discuss our plans, that go years into the future, because, they're still a little bit speculative. But yes, we are planning to sort of open up many interactive options to work with the MetaHumans, so that, we can do various things. And, we'll try to change the perception of what belongs to the digital humans technology after all. So, there's also things like tracking of the face and the body, and using your body as a sort of interface with what happens in the interactive space. So yeah, there's a big domain for exploration there.
Cool. So I understand that it's creating a MetaHuman is not limited to using the Epic engine, even though it comes with a lot of great shading examples and everything. But from the information I got, it's also possible to export everything into, let's say, Maya, which is still commonly used in a lot of studios or educational institutes. So that's possible, and then I can use that as an asset and fine-tune things and work with the rig, right?
Yes, yeah, we really wanted to make a fundamental difference to how people work, and we didn't want to create the friction of making these assets available only in Unreal Engine. We understand that a lot of users have Maya-based workflows. So I think we've made that really nice by being able to replicate the rig one-to-one in both the engine and Maya, and also by creating a live link between the two, so that you can animate in Maya and have a live preview in the engine.
Okay. Are you using USD for that? Because I'm just asking because it's just in general becoming more of a standard to exchange data between various applications.
Yeah, USD is a bigger topic within Unreal Engine. We're currently using a pretty standard FBX workflow, and our rig is in the blueprints, in the control rig, and in various kind of binary forms that we designed to most efficiently represent the rig. So yeah, currently we do not use USD.
Good. Yeah, I have a more general question now. So when looking at this landscape of digital content creation tools, maybe over the last 3 years, Epic has been very substantial for innovations and workflows that have long been discussed but hardly been realized at large scale. So I'm wondering if you could speak about the general philosophy of developing tools within a company like Epic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. So as you know, our company has a sort of is building an ecosystem of tools and services around the engine. So I think one of the adjacent services is the one done by Quixel, where you can download beautifully scanned assets across the world and assemble whole environments without, again, needing to go to a sort of distant locations in the world and spend a lot of time and money. So we are, sort of building a sort of complementary capability so that you can fill and populate these worlds that you build with digital characters. For now, we are, helping mostly around digital humans, but we do have plans to expand this to stylized characters in the future, and also create open tool sets that let you intuitively design characters and creatures of your own. But that's kind of more distant future, although Engine offers pretty amazing capabilities even today. So our strategy is to make the content creation focused on art rather than the technical, and then the technical is there completely open for teams who feel that they can contribute and go beyond Engine out of the box capabilities.
So, were you always convinced about real-time technology being capable of where it is at the moment? I'm asking because not today, but years ago, we've had lots of discussions about what real-time technology could be at one point. And I think it is remarkable to see, that a game engine developer is providing more of a tool set that maybe you would expect from other companies to come up with, right? So,
Yes.
get back to the initial question. I think I'm wondering about your affection to real time and these things.
To be honest, more than 15 years ago, I was a part of heated debates of this, supposed clash of film and gaming that is meant to happen, and I was on the side that claimed it will not be possible to have film techniques translated into real time, and I suppose things changed when I think it was with the coming of the PlayStation 4 around 2011 that I've seen games so committed to storytelling and these interactive stories that made me think about that twice. So I was, for my whole career, in gaming and then wanting to go more in film, and then that sort of I changed my opinion about 10 years ago, and I realized that gaming is really a sort of a bigger domain where film will exist, but also interactive films and gaming and all of the other things. So that got me excited because I was always committed to the fidelity of characters. So if you remember games from 20 years ago, they would not allow you computational budgets to draw a believable character. So when that changed, my opinion changed as well. And then some years ago, we've seen what's happening with the Unreal Engine, and we got connected and started working on projects together. So it was a slow transition of us realizing first it was standardization of cameras and lights, and then the sequencer came, and all of the workflows from the film sort of started to be incorporated in the engine. And I guess now is the time when we are addressing content creation, among other things. So some teams see game engine as means to make the film with less money because the rendering is faster. But I get excited when they do things like, hey, let's make a game and a movie, or a movie that can be played at a certain time. And this sort of reusability of assets and non-linearity of story and audience being involved more actively rather than passively as when they watch a movie. All of these things are extremely exciting creative potential.
360 content creation. That's how we refer to it in teaching. That's interesting. So let me ask you a question about machine learning and artificial intelligence, as there is so much happening in that area as well. It seems to be on the forefront of changing many of the creative process aspects that we deal with in our daily life. And we've seen that AI paired with image processing can create very believable face replacements without the need of a CG model. So do you have an opinion on these things?
I do. It's definitely amazing what machine learning can do. I still don't have a definitive opinion towards that because I'm obviously biased, right? My whole career has been dedicated to creating 3D assets. So even if that's a reality that is coming to us, it may take me a while to recognize it. But I still believe that we do need a full three-dimensional representation, just because machine learning is fantastic, but it does suffer from needing a lot of training data and a massive infrastructure to train the models. So whatever you can do to reduce the problem to the space that matters to you most, where it would be inefficient for you to spend manual labor to accomplish certain results. I think that's where machine learning is excelling. But building the full content I don't think that machine learning is conceptually in a place to solve everything. So I think it's a fantastic tool, but at the end of the day, it's just a tool, and it needs to live within a wider ecosystem and of processes and other tools.
Also, the terminology is quite demanding on right. It's like always this. It's AI powered, so it has to solve. Yes. All issues we ever had, which is probably a bit too much expectation, but that's interesting to hear and to understand. Well, this brings us to the end of our FMX Spotlight. So thank you so much, Vladimir, for this overview, for your opinions, and in meeting you as a person. Thanks also to everybody at Epic for making this FMX Spotlight possible. Notice that our next FMX Spotlight show will be on April 6th with Kim Adams from Adventure Labs. FMX main event will be from May 4th till May 6th as an online event only this year, and the ticket sale actually just started. Unlike previous years, tickets for FMX will be valid from the first day of the conference, May 4th, through the end of July, giving the audience the opportunity to watch the conference presentations via video on demand after the live conference has ended. And here are some program highlights. We'll have Florian Gellinger from the VFX studio Rise. We'll have Glenn Keane, among others, on Over the Moon. VFX insights into the breathtaking German live-action movie Jim Button and the Wild 13. We'll have Nexus Studios' latest work on AR-based enhanced locations, and insights into the cinematic adaptation of Monster Hunter from Mr. X. Finally, please follow us on social media. And now let's head over to our audience for the Q&A session. Thanks for joining us here with Vladimir. And let me maybe start to kick off some questions that are on my mind. You don't need to actually repost the questions from YouTube. I have them in a list here, so we won't miss them. But maybe before we go into the audience questions, Vladimir, when will the MetaHuman toolset become available for an end user?
Mm-hmm. Well, in the announcement, we did say this year, but we can narrow that down to very soon, in the next couple of months, maybe even next month.
Okay, wonderful. And I'll just continue with some of the questions from the chat on, there were actually a lot of questions related to hair creation. So is there any way we could customize hair for MetaHuman? Like maybe even art directed? I feel like hair tools are still pretty limited right now, was the question from one of the users.
Yeah. So the product itself is focused around the most difficult thing to do, and that's typically the facial rig and the high resolution geometry and appearance. We have a significant number of hairstyles to choose from, but we realize it's not any sort of every possible hairstyle. There's going to be several things happening. One will be adding new hairstyles to the tool, and in the future there may be more options around each individual hairstyle. And the other one is we sort of almost want to just illustrate the possibility with the metahumans. When you create your character with a tool, in the cloud service, you'll be able to build an asset and then download it, similarly how you can download the sample assets we have provided early February. And then everything about that asset is customizable. It's geometry, joints, blend shapes, pretty much the standard workflows. And there are other parts of the engine that offer import of the sort of custom hairstyles that are either authored in Maya or in other places. And they're kind of predefined workflows. So you can take that sort of MetaHuman as a good starting point and then do whatever custom work you need on top. I guess the only part that is going to be somewhat limited is the facial rig itself. So you'll be able to change the underlying geometry as well. So you'll be able to do things like add elf-like ears or add specific sculpts on the base geometry. But of course, if you deviate too far away from the character you've created, then the underlying rig will no longer be valid. But the point remains is that it's an asset, right? It's an asset. It's a platform for making assets, and you can do whatever you need to do to that asset, customize textures, hairstyles, clothing, and even the facial geometry itself, if needed, to a certain extent.
So it basically means it's like two options: the customizable ability from the MetaHuman toolset. But if you're an expert or if you know how to operate DCC tools, it seems like you can use not just Maya, a variety of tools that would allow you to use hair tools from these and bring them back into MetaHumans, right?
Yes, as long as you're operating with file formats which are common to Unreal Engine, which most of the usual ones are.
Yeah, one person also asked about Sideburns. I guess that's more or less a preset. I mean, either you could do it yourself or wait for a preset to appear on the toolset, right?
Yeah. With this product, we really wanted to make it low friction and approachable to everybody. We've had even kids in our team, which are like 6-7 years old, being able to use the tool, all the way up to the AAA gaming professionals and VFX who are, similarly excited with the tool. So depending on where you are and what your needs are, there's various levels of interaction with this tool. The key thing for us was to make it approachable and easy to use, and then customizable to the extent that you may need. For all the productions, even for like virtual productions and AAA productions, the MetaHuman itself will be the end of the road. Maybe it's just a ambient character on the street, or maybe it's a secondary character, or maybe it's a character with which you're prototyping a story interactively in some sort of virtual production environment.
Okay, let's continue. Here's a question. I'm curious as to what cloud-based means here. Is it about where the computation happens, or are you interacting with the toolset from the cloud?
Yes, the tool itself is in the cloud. So you use it through the browser, but it's really cloud streamed in a similar way that cloud gaming platforms stream basically a compute of a high-end workstation and then make it available in your browser. So when you log into the tool, really a sort of high-end machine will be started for you in the cloud and will be available to you through the browser. And the process of creation of the character is essentially a game that we run, a game with the purpose of creating a new character. And then once you've done that, you've really provided all the information in the parameter space that we need in order to actually compute the asset for you. So basically what you're seeing in the tool is a preview of the asset that we will custom build for you based on that input. And then once that is done, you will be provided with a link where you can download a fairly big sized, package of all of the things, geometry, joints, blend shapes, everything that you need to open that character in Unreal Engine or in Maya.
Okay. So here's a question on, is it possible to sculpt an asymmetrical face?
That's an interesting one. We've taken a data-driven approach, which means that whenever you create a new character, it somehow samples the database and interpolates within that space. And the database is made of real people. So there are symmetry tools in the tool. So you can move the markers symmetrically, you can blend symmetrically, but that will give you symmetrical in the real world sense. In sense, it will not be mathematically symmetrical because that is unnatural. We are not seeing perfect symmetry in our database, and therefore your character is not perfectly symmetrical. But what you can do is, for some reason, if you do require that symmetry, like that perfect symmetry, that should be fairly easy thing to do on your side once you download the asset and basically just apply the one-to-one transform. But sort of coming to the point, in the digital humans and generally characters in general, we always want asymmetry because that's one of the things that makes it real.
All right. Yeah, I think we already saw in your demo that there's so many ways to interact with the humans. It seems that all these things are possible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a 3D student from Germany, and his question is, if students like he can have access to the MetaHuman toolset.
Yes, everybody can access the MetaHuman. It's going to be available for everybody.
All right, that's great to know. And you mentioned Maya being supported in the output. Since I know every integration is separately costly, it is going to be similarly seamlessly in other DCCs or other tools?
So our goal with MetaHumans was to empower primarily Unreal Engine users and sort of fill in the part of the ecosystem. As you know, we have Quixel that has a large database of wonderful scans that are taken in locations across the world, and this is additional step where now we can fill the characters with real looking digital humans as well. So we don't have any plans to support other DCCs than Maya for now. We supported Maya because we recognize that Maya is a sort of industry standard tool for animation workflows. And we wanted to enable that workflow. We want to be sort of inclusive of everybody and support. We don't want people to have to change their workflows because of us. Mm-hmm. So that's the effort on that side. And also the business model for the MetaHumans is that they are free to use as long as you end up using them in Unreal Engine. If that's not the case, then there are other business models that apply, and basically there's conversation with the biz dev people that needs to happen. So Maya there is sort of we see it as a sort of a pipeline piece that ends up being in UE. If some other pipelines are required and we're open to these possibilities, then it's a sort of more custom conversation that needs to happen to see mm-hmm. what is the end goal, what level of support does that need, and so on.
And then there's a second part to that question. It goes a bit more into detail about data exchange. So how will you exchange the data? Is it going to be a standard format or in conjunction with some sort of plugins, since each DCC handles rigs and groom in such a fundamentally different way?
Well, I think I maybe would not agree with that. I think each DCC manages the data in a very similar way, but maybe wrapping up different kind of products. But ultimately, it's about joints and blend shapes and transforms and what happens to them. So it's a sort of a very common data set that you need to exchange. So what we've made is a part of the infrastructure of this product is the asset is one-to-one importable in both Maya and UE, which means that we do have some common format between the two, and we have an importer for both Maya and Unreal Engine. And even then, you can actually open the same character in Maya and in Unreal Engine, and there is a live link connection between them, so that you can adjust the rig in Maya and see immediate feedback in the engine. And actually, we've demoed this at FMX some years ago. I think it was 2017 as part of our Hellblade demo. We've shown a Senua character in Maya and then sort of that animation being live streamed into the engine. So we've taken a lot of effort to standardize things around MetaHumans. I think that's part of the value that these things are becoming standardized.
Okay, good to understand. Is another question. Will it be possible to export the base mesh, then wrap it to my own scan and re-import it to Unreal with my deformation and textures?
It will be possible to take your own scan and create a MetaHuman in general likeness of your scan. And then, yes, exchange neutral mesh so that the MetaHuman can start looking like a specific person. We are still not supporting that in the tool itself, but that's something that you can do on your own when you download the asset. But we will also look into this space and enable such workflows when the time comes.
Then there's this question, will the MetaHuman Creator be available for free?
Yes. Yeah. As long as the end goal of that character is in Unreal Engine, yes, it's going to be available for free.
Are more cosmetic skin changes like the freckles and such exported as a single texture? And I'm gathering that MetaHumans will not allow any sort of importing of users' own scans. Well, that's kind of what we just discussed, right?
Yeah. So I think the question is about, will the freckles and such cosmetic changes be merged onto a single texture? And the answer is not. We will provide them as layers because we would expect that users will probably want to use the freckles and the makeup as a starting point and then do customizations of their own on top.
Okay.
So I want to provide a little bit of background. A lot of these technologies are sort of merger between cubic motion and trilateral, and of course Epic Games, but we've been in the service business for about, 15 years. And in the MetaHuman Creator, we're really trying to simulate our services. So all of the things that we learned through working with various different clients in AAA industry is we sort of try to embed this experience into the experience of MetaHuman Creator so that it sort of simulates and automatizes our service and provides assets in a form in which we learn most of our clients prefer to have them.
Yeah, very impressive. And fantastic that such a tool becomes available. I think you can see from the questions or also people that I speak to that there seems to be a really high demand and people have been waiting for something like this to become applicable. And I think it's also fantastic to see that, it's not a box solution where you're not able to go elsewhere, because that's, if you look into the production pipelines, it's all tools that fit somehow, right? Not just one.
Yeah, that was really important to us, that people don't feel entrapped with MetaHumans. MetaHumans should provide value, but then people should make their own decisions depending on their needs. That was really important to us to accomplish.
Yeah, I think people are looking very forward, as I do, to get my hands on the tool. I think it's about the last minutes where you can ask questions. Here's one coming in. There's a couple of questions coming in, so let me just quickly see. We're going here. Are there any animations included in this engine which make the characters look alive and present them in motion?
There will be a smaller set of animations initially present in the tool, but we also have a marketplace as part of Unreal Engine ecosystem. So we expect that many creators will be offering animation sets as additional assets that you can either download or buy. And we'll be filling the tool as the time goes with more interesting stuff. But right now for version 1, we were really focusing on the core of the tool itself. And that's sort of to provide this sort of automatized experience and delivery of assets.
All right, cool. Now, is there a limit of number of characters that can be saved? Does it require some sort of cloud storage program?
No, we are not limiting the number of characters that you save. And we are not measuring the amount of space that you take saving them. Mm-hmm. We are measuring it, but we're not imposing limits.
Okay, here's an interesting question. So do you think there will always be a place or a need for manual face shape and sculpting, or are you aiming to automate this part of the process completely?
I think there's multiple ways to interpret that question. If I interpret it as, will the artistry be needed in creating digital humans? I think absolutely yes. Because if you look at metahumans versus very, very specific looking people, I think there's always going to be a place for people who can find that sort of space of expression and subtlety and character that is going to be beyond what we can do with data alone. I think that's how the question was asked, right? Mm-hmm. Well, yes. But what we're looking to automate, like when we look at Gen 5 games, a lot of them have hunger for characters in hundreds and thousands to fill the open worlds and streets of megacities and all of that. And that's really one of the spaces that we want to fill. Like, we don't think that it should be humans modeling thousands or even millions or billions of humans. That would be impossible. So that's the space that we want to fill, but also specific characters. Like, we imagine being a story writer and wanting to see your characters almost immediately, to see how they look, how they perform. That's the kind of new kind of content creation that we want to empower, but never really to replace either actors or sculptors. These are people who will always be needed.
Mm-hmm. It almost sounds like a little bit like Mocap being very specific maybe 15 years ago, dedicated, expensive hardware, not accessible. And now if you look at motion capture, a lot of phones can do it, maybe not in the highest quality. And so it's MetaHumans for a wide variety of applications and access to them on very high quality. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about motion capture, is there any recommended mocap solution to use with MetaHumans?
Yes, well, we've reached out to a lot of software animation developers, like Faceware and Dynamics' Digital Domain, DI4D. We will make sure that they have what they need to be successful out of the box with animating metahumans. And of course, there's ARKit, which is accessible without any additional charge to a very large number of people. So an ARKit is sort of our entry-level solution if you don't want to invest or you don't have the time. But there's certainly going to be a professional-grade solutions that will be out of the box compatible with metahumans.
Good to know. So people are asking, since we've been talking about Maya, if Houdini will become an option of editing data.
I can't comment on that yet, but I'll skip that one. It's hard to comment on any sort of future roadmap things which weren't announced yet.
Yeah, and then here's somebody who wants to know, I'm just a little curious, how is this all free, ? Is there a catch somewhere?
It's a fair question. In short, there is no catch. It's very simple. If you use these characters in Unreal Engine ecosystem, then ultimately Unreal Engine benefits from awesome creatives working on the platform. And there's no catch. There's all of the business models are very transparent about that. It's just that. How can we offer it for free? That's really what's really fantastic at Epic Games, is that we have the means and the willpower to do so. Like, to us, it's magical that we can all of a sudden democratize something that until yesterday was, really reserved for only companies with very large budgets. We feel that it will transform how people think about storytelling, about cinematography in the engine, and ultimately that's the value for us.
Yeah, exactly. Wonderful to hear. So here's an user that wants to know if an iPhone could be created to capture mocap. I think that's part of what you just mentioned with ARKit, right? The face tracking that's included in ARKit, or?
Yes, yeah. Well, the animation is, but if you're looking to capture your own face, as in a scan of yourself, and then have that reflected in the MetaHuman, that's currently not supported.
Well, the question was more on the animation.
Yeah, animation.
And actually, for the user, if you go to social media, there's plenty of those examples. With the two example MetaHumans provided through the download portal of Unreal.
Yes,
so
yes.
People
have you even seen
those?
Yeah, sorry.
To an intensive test drive, right?
Yes, I've seen a lot of people play with running Zoom calls as MetaHumans, and seeing reactions of other just wondering and kind of a little bit being freaked out by the fact. So they see that there's something wrong, but they can't really tell exactly what.
Okay. So here's a question about the level of details. Is there control over them?
Yes, each asset comes with 8 levels of detail. It's an asset which is a combination of high quality joint based rig and blend shape rig. So there is 8 levels of detail where you can first not use the blend shapes, and then the joint hierarchy is designed in a way that is, if you imagine a tree, so basically with each layer, you're basically going deeper and deeper to the branches of that tree and going from 700 joints to 500 to 350 to 250 to ultimately you end up with just something about 5-6 joints. Because our background is a lot of in open world games like GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption, systems like these are often very important in the game, where the fidelity is one thing, but the ability to reduce the cost of the rig quickly when the character becomes less important is also one of the key things when it comes to facial rigging for games.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so I think we have a couple of more questions until we close the session. So here is one question about a random button, as you might know them from character creators in some of the games, that just generates random parameters and a random face based on that.
We don't have a random button yet, but we will seriously consider such a feature. We just we want to do it in a way that always produces a good character, and with a random button, that's not always the case.
Okay. Then there's a question on the possibility of uploading photos and using them as a reference for character creation. I guess that goes a bit more towards, replicating something, which I think you mentioned that's not at the moment, not the goal of the tool, right?
Yeah. At the moment, we don't support such a workflow because the tool does not create specific likeness. It couldn't create me or you, but it could create a person which is looking like distant relative of us, of the two of us, or close relative. Basically, we've said for the first version of the tool, you get a plausible human, not a specific human.
Okay. Well, Vladimir, with that, I think I would like to end the Q&A session at that point. There was a lot of questions, and I think it's quite obvious that this tool will change a lot in artists' workflows of creating believable humans. Thank you very much for taking your time, for being here tonight with us. And this is the end of this spotlight. Let me just quickly point out that we'll have another spotlight on the Creative Connection, which will be on April 6th. It's about the power of storytelling, technology, and innovation to bring people together when we need them the most. We'll talk with Kim Adams about her journey from the worlds of traditional animation and visual effects to storytelling in virtual reality and beyond, to innovate a new interactive media platform, the Adventure Lab. So you don't want to miss that on April 6th. And I say thank you so much, Vladimir, for joining us tonight. Have a great time. Thank you, audience, and goodbye. Take care.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.